Hi guys, you're welcome back to the lecture series on information retrieval. We shall continue on discussing the term vocabulary and how to refine our IR approach to make it more intelligent. So we briefly explained that uh, some of the components of our IR system will require us to tokenize, which is actually to break the sentences into words, individual words. We might also decide to remove stop words, and we might also decide to do stemming, reducing a word to its base equivalent. So to obtain the character sequence in a document, the digital documents are typically byte in a file, and the first step of processing is for us to convert this byte sequence into a sequence of characters. And if it is an English plain text, this is easy to do. But if it have some special characters, we may need to decode the byte to character sequence for various single byte or multi-byte encoding schemes. For instance, if you have a Unicode character UTF-8, so we might need to do some decoding. And the textual part of a document may need to be extracted from other materials. For instance, if you have a PDF file that contains images, you might need to parse the document so that you can retrieve the textual files. Now, using an example of scientific literature, you might have a combination of images and text, and we are interested in the text part of the document. So, in preparing our IR system, the second stage is for us to determine what the index and what the document unit for indexing is. So we have a collection of our files in a folder. We take each of the file as a document, as in we're trying to see how we can represent at what level should we consider a document, should we consider as a document. So in a folder, typically we have multiple files. So what we do is we consider each file in a folder as a document. Others could be like when we are working in the domain of emails, we may want to consider a sequence of email messages stored in one file. You may wish to regard each email message as a separate document. These are all decisions that we have to make in preparing our document for the IR system. It may be a sequence of message, maybe with the same topic. We could refer that as a document, or you could consider each message as a document. Necessarily, you consider the message and the attachment as two separate documents. You don't want to mix them together. Posts in a thread is an example that you can consider as each post as a document. So the index may occur for very large documents such as books. So for instance, if you have a book, you cannot consider a whole book as a document. You may have to uh, go down to a more fine-tuned level, or go to the level of a chapter in the book to consider it as the document, or even sometimes a paragraph. Okay, so you may want to look at uh, the paragraph as the document. So how do you determine the vocabulary of terms? First is tokenization, which we have talked about, which is splitting up the character sequence into tokens. And how do you decide what makes a token? It could be a sequence of characters with a semantic meaning. So a token may not necessarily be a single word. For instance, in this case where we have friends, romance, countrymen, lend me your ears, you may have each of the ones in the box as a token. So friends, romance, friend. You look at this countrymen, we consider countrymen together as a token. instead of just breaking it as country and men. Lend me your ears. So we could split on white space. Those are ideas that we could make, decisions we could make, and throw away the punctuations. And there could be some problem with that approach when apostrophe refers to as is used to refer to as possession or contraction. For instance, if we throw away apostrophe here and break on apostrophe here, then we are going to have O and nil, and that would have taken a whole lot of meaning because O apostrophe nil is a single name. And if we take away this apostrophe, then it will take away the meaning of orange. So in some cases, we may want to include the apostrophe in the choice of our selection of tokens to make it a single token. So this is what we're having here. You will see here, so we have different options. Should we just take near and remove the apostrophe and put O near, or keep the apostrophe, or break it into two, or remove the apostrophe and break it into two? So here we have like five possible choices of how we can decide to break this this sentence into different tokens. So those are some of the choices that we may have to make there. Some decision we may have to make. And a further note on tokenization is generally do not do the exact same tokenization of token and query words, and that is very important. Whatever you will do for the document while preparing it for our IR system, you must also do the same on the query words. If not, we're going to have a large portion of mismatch. So you process the query the same way with the same tokenizer that we use for the document behind the scene. So once the user types the query, you want to pass it through the same tokenizer that you use for the document. The problem with tokenization are language specific, and you can use machine learning to do a language identification. So that may be another pipeline. First of all, identify the language, then you can now divert English language text to English tokenizers, Spanish to Spanish, German to German. Sometimes punctuations like email numbers and case can be meaningful part of a token. So these are some of the decisions based on the domain you may be working on. Because if you break E by the punctuation hyphen, you may lose the meaning of email. So, and also having R, certain Republican, the capital R and the lowercase r makes a whole lot of difference too, and that can help further to make our system perform better. So simplest approach is to ignore all numbers and punctuation and use only case insensitive unbroken strings of alphabet characters as token. So this is what you normally see the approach used. Another approach is to preserve special terms. So you may have a list of those special terms, and when they are encountered by tokenizing, you may decide to just leave them. We are sure of what sure of them. So these are decisions that has to be made when you have understanding of the kind of terms that will be in the vocabulary. So you can begin to create exceptions for those kind of terms, and this will help to make the IR system to perform better. Stop words is another important one. So extremely common words of stop word often create very little value. So in helping to select a document match between the user query and the document in in the corpus. So here, this link contains a list of the stop words. You may decide to remove them. So, however, not indexing stop words not indexing stop words may be harmful. Sometimes, sometimes not. These are some of the decisions we have to have a trade-off. So you may decide not to index stop words. You may decide to remove them. But in some cases, if you keep them, they can help. For instance, where you have President of the United States, this of and the help us to be able to uh, more get a clearer meaning than just having President United and United States. And for instance, in one of the Shakespeare's word, to be or not to be. So if you remove to, you remove the, you remove to, you remove the, what you just have is or not, then you won't be able to make any sense of this. You won't be able to retrieve anything. So we have to, in this case, in Shakespeare's document, we have to keep all these stop words so that our IR system will be able to have a match. So these are all trade-offs and decisions that has to be made at the time of constructing an IR system. Generally, web search engines do not use stop word list. That is, what it means is that they do not remove stop words. So another important term is normalization, which is equivalence classes of terms, and that is where we're going to continue the next time. I'll thank you for listening and see you in the next one.